And we are live. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever the hell you are in the world, and welcome to Sci-Trek, your sci-fi TV and movie channel. Again, being joined by Mikey over here from the Solar One podcast.
Hi. Hello, Jay. How are you?
I am very well, my old Cocker Spaniel. I don't know why I said that, but I think maybe I don't know.
I'm trying to take it personally. That's fine.
All good, all good. I'm going to roll the credits, and then we'll crack on. Right, hopefully we are live because I've had a little bit of a problem with this earlier, but
Okay.
I think we are. But
I can check my phone if you want.
Yeah, well, I'll just check mine as well while I'm on, just to make sure we're not talking to ourselves. No, we are on live, and I can see myself. How creepy is that?
Good. That's fantastic.
There you go. Hello.
Oh, there we go. And there's me as well. There we go.
But anyway, so right, Star Trek.
Yes.
Picard season 3 airs on tomorrow in the United States because they're selfish, and here in the UK because we're second-class citizens on Friday. I bet Amazon must be gutted. I did hear at one point Amazon were getting it the day after, but now I don't think they are.
I don't know. I don't think so. No, it's strange.
It was put on Amazon Prime at one point, but the first 2 seasons were advertised as Amazon Prime production. now they've got Prime. Now they've got Prime Plus.
It's all up in the air, isn't it? You never know quite where you stand at the moment. So it's I'm just glad it's finally here. It's been a very, very long wait. We've been talking about it on my show for months, and looking at a lot of the early people have had some early screeners, and some of those harsh critics have also seen them, and from what I've heard, it's a lot of positive feedback. So what have you heard your end? What do you think about this whole thing?
I unfortunately know quite a lot of people that got to go to the premiere.
Do you? Okay.
Through the channel and through talking to people like Sean Ferrick, he got to go.
I saw it. I know he looked very smug, didn't he, when he came out?
Yes, he did. And the Popcast boys and a few others. And I hate all of them. I hope they have some sort of Star Trek related accident. And no, obviously.
Transporter accident, is it? Or is it
an Enterprise dropped on their heads? I don't know. Borg attack? Whatever, really. I'm just
simulation.
Yeah, I'm just very jealous and angry.
It happens.
But no, these lucky sods got to go to see it, and very cool. It must have been a very cool because obviously the actors and everything were there. Denise Crosby wasn't there. They forgot to invite her. Tasha Yar, no Tasha Yar.
I've actually met Denise Crosby, and she was really nice. I went to a convention in Birmingham a couple of years ago. And it's the first one I ever went to. And I was there with my daughter. And we looked at her. She saw us. And we were talking, should we go and talk to her? And she sort of beckoned us over. She was really, really nice.
Yeah,
so it's very strange when you actually meet people that you see on the shows. But yeah, I don't know why she's not been invited. So
No, it is strange. I've never really met anyone famous, but I've spoken to people famous on Twitter and stuff. And I tell you what, it's not always the best experience. But, the only person I've really met that was actually I'm wearing his T-shirt. That's a suspicious Liam thing. I met Dave Grohl, lead singer of the Foo Fighters. It was when Colour and the Shape just came out, and they weren't massive over here, so they were just playing quite small venues. So we literally went out of the thing, went into the pub next door, and then the band walked in, and I just stood in his face going, "Dave, it's Dave!" And literally that was so. He just went, "Yes."
Oh no!
Yes, it is.
Oh, it's embarrassing.
I just carried on pointing and shouting Dave in his face. But he bought everyone a drink. It was great. There's like
it's good. So it was okay. Yeah. It's
so no, brilliant. Anyway, back to Star Trek. So Picard Tuesday. First thing I wanted to say, did a video a couple of days ago about the Enterprise F. So we hear that the Enterprise F is not. We already knew it wasn't going to be in this series much. It basically does a flyby. And that's about it. It's a big celebration, fireworks, and a base Starbase one. But now we hear actually it's having a flyby and a celebration because it's about to get decommissioned.
No, I've heard that. Very surprised about that. It's a ship that I've been wanting to see for many years, and it's a very clever twist actually. That if a ship that we finally see, the F, even though it's not going to be, quote, the hero ship of the actual series, it's actually been decommissioned. And I've had a bet with my colleague Martin on the podcast. I'm convinced that we're going to see the captain of the Enterprise F. And I keep saying to him, I know who it's going to be. It's going to be Captain Harry Kim. I just think it's going to. I think it's going to be him. Because wouldn't it be an irony after all those years where he was the ensign on Voyager? You don't think that?
It's a running joke, isn't it, that he's the least promoted person on the planet? There's Ensign Harry Kim for a long, long, very time. So we did see him as a captain, obviously in the future episode.
Yes, that's right.
About that, aboard that horrible little ship that he was aboard. But
Rhode Island.
The Rhode Island, yep. But what do you think about? I mean, I love the Odyssey class. I thought it's a great design. I love the double neck thing. I love the thing.
Yep.
There are angles. It's not the nicest. I'll be honest. There are a lot of people hate it, and in certain angles, it's not the prettiest ship in the world. I don't know. But overall, I've always really, really liked it. What do you think of the design?
I like it. I mean, I'm not a big gamer, but I'm very familiar with the class from over the years. It's been around for a long time. The only bit I don't like, which sounds a bit weird, is I don't like the warp nacelles at the back slightly curve, and for some reason, some angles it just doesn't look quite right. If it had been slightly straighter, but it's just like I said, we all have sort of pros and cons with Federation starships, but on the whole, it looks like a ship that you wouldn't want to mess with. It looks very sturdy. It's very structurally sound, and of course, Enterprises tend to get bigger as the ones go along. So I've always thought it was a really cool design. I would hope that we'd see it to a relative degree in Picard season 3, but whether it's going to be just a very short flyby, I don't know.
Well, I've got a horrible feeling we're going to see it as much as we see it.
Yeah, it's possible.
It would make sense if it's been decommissioned for Picard to visit it, and that's why Picard's there. So we may get to see it a bit more. I don't know, but I just think it's a shame that we're going to get to see this vessel finally get to see her, and we're never going to see her again.
No,
and that is a massive shame. But it does open the opportunity because there are loads more letters in the alphabet.
Enterprise G, yes,
with a G. I don't know what series that would be in. I'd look for me. I'd love the next generation. Aboard the Enterprise G, boom, series. That's it, simple. But I don't think they'll do that. If I'm 100% honest.
What do you think will happen if this is a really big success and Terry Matalas gets the chance of making a brand new series? What would you think the direction they would take?
I think the surprise success of Strange New Worlds has thrown everything open. Now, if we assume they stay with the production company they're with at the moment, which there has been lots of rumours that actually they might change production companies because Paramount have not been particularly happy with Kurtzman.
Okay.
But if they do, so because one of the things they keep talking about is that we don't actually know what's coming after the couple of series we know. So we know Discovery 5. We got nothing on Series 6. We know we've got the 2 animated series coming, but we know nothing about it after that. We don't even know anything about if there's a 3rd series of Strange New Worlds.
That's right.
But we know Picard's ending. So one of the rumors is that all these things are not being announced because actually they're going to reboot it and they're going to switch production companies. I don't think they will.
I don't think so either.
But I do think the success of Strange New Worlds has sort of made them stop and have a reassess.
Yeah, I agree. I think from my perspective, Strange New Worlds was a real breath of fresh air because it was back to familiar territory of standalone episodes in an era that, all right, it was a prequel. And you've said before you're not a big fan of prequels. In some ways, I'm not either. But the way that it came across, it felt more like Star Trek should be. A lot of people have got problems with Discovery. I do too. It's definitely the least familiar Star Trek series I've ever seen. And I just think that I would hope that they are. The thing is, they are listening to the fans. Part of the reason why Strange New Worlds came about was because people said, well, look, Discovery is just not what we want. And they did do that in their defense. And I also think that I personally think with the Picard series, the reason why it's taking 3 seasons to get to this point is because Patrick Stewart wanted a series about Jean-Luc Picard. He didn't want a Star Trek Next Generation season 8 kind of thing. He wanted it to be focusing on his own character. And slowly, as the time's gone by, they've managed to persuade him with season 3 to think, well, look, this is the real end of the Next Generation. This is going to be like the Undiscovery was for the original series. Let's bring back the whole gang and have a farewell adventure thing. Bit like if they'd made another film after Nemesis, which is what they were planning. This way, they've got an even longer season. You've got 10 episodes, probably about 45 minutes each, to properly wrap things up and say goodbye to this era of Star Trek. So,
so we've got 10 hours of Star Trek.
Yeah,
basically. But yeah.
So I'm not sure. I'm not sure what's going to go next.
I don't think we're going to get the Section 31. That was rumored for a long time. I don't think that's happening. Michelle, and if they do it, it won't be Michelle Yeoh. Okay. The other one was Star Trek Academy.
That's been mooted for years. That's been mooted for about 30, 40 years. So.
Well, the comic books are so popular, but Gene Roddenberry actually wrote a series based on Starfleet Academy. So that's been gone back to look at that a few times. But they can't do that. We don't want Star Trek 90210. I just don't want it. And I think people will go crazy.
That's good. Yeah, I agree entirely.
But I think they have gone back and says, I would love is a 7 of 9 series based above the Titan. That would be cool.
From what I understand, I think a lot of that. I mean, one thing about going back to Discovery was that they had the bridge crew. You still really don't remember them after 4. I mean, I know it's Detmer and Owesakun is the 2 female characters on that, but I only learned that after 4 years. Apparently, the characters on the new Titan are going to really stand out. I know that one is going to be Geordie's daughter, and there's going to be a bald Vulcan, I think, as well. And I think there might be I don't know, well, there's some other races as well. And what I understand is that it's been written in a way that in some ways it could be potentially, and again, this is all hypothetical, an introduction into them being on their own series, the next generation kind of thing. I don't know whether that's true or not, but I hope that at least there's a possibility.
I've just noticed my face is in the astronaut's head.
I did that for our show. I did that. You never said about it, so maybe I should put my head there.
No, I didn't notice.
I'm always doing daft things with Photoshop. Go on.
Well, leave it for next time. I'm over with you guys.
I'll take it off next time. I promise. Go on.
I just noticed. What the fuck is that? Who's that gorgeous fellow in that under David Tennant? All right. But yeah, I mean, it does seem to be there's been a lot of development work, and if they're not thinking about Stargate Titan, Star Trek Titan, so I've just done 2. I've just filmed literally 3 Stargate videos.
That's fine. It happens.
But yeah, unless they're doing a Star Trek Titan with 7 of 9, I know Jerry Ryan is got a small part in another series. Okay, she's going off
breaking up a bit at the moment.
Okay. Yeah, your signal's not great. I don't want to show my internet signal's great this evening. And the kids are here, so they're sucking up all my.
Me too. Okay, we're back now. I think we're okay now. But carry on what you're saying. Sorry.
Excellent. So, and I know she's off for a little series, but apparently it's not a big part, so she could come back. Okay. If the Section 31 thing is still a possibility, but it won't be with Michelle Yeoh. But I just don't want them to do a very focused series that would be. And it's we want a starship. I think that's what most Trekkies want.
I mean, Section 31 was so very cleverly introduced in season 6 of DS9, and you had Sloane and everything else, and they were in the background. And then they appeared also in Enterprise, which was quite interesting, but again, they're in the background. When it came to Discovery, they weren't the way they're originally written. They actually had like black comm badges. They were actually more of a sort of had its own identity, where the whole point of Section 31 was that they were really in the background. They were really kind of like in little cells in the Federation doing their own bit in the background rather than and I don't know whether a Star Trek series would be strong enough with Section 31. I don't know where it would go, which might be that interesting to follow.
Yeah, it's not even
You know what I mean?
it's not even like Starfleet intelligence, is it? It's a section of Starfleet intelligence that's supposed to be ultra. I don't want to see it. I'm not interested. And also, I don't want another time frame. We've got 4 time frames at the moment. We don't need any more. We've got the Picard time frame, which is 20 years.
I agree.
To where the animated is. We've got Discovery, which is another 100 and something years ahead of that, and we've got Strange New Worlds, which is 7 years before the original series. That's enough different time frames. Thank you very much.
I agree. Yeah,
I do not need to have to make notes every time I watch a Star Trek series to figure out. Nearly did again then. A Star Trek series to figure out which bloody time frame I'm looking at. And it confuses the things, and they end up stepping on their own toes. And I don't want, but hopefully we won't.
Can I ask a question?
Do it.
What I liked about 90s Star Trek was that there were 3 series which were set all around the same time in the 24th century. And they actually continued. They did overlap, but what I liked about that era was that you'd have crossovers, events from one series could actually affect another. And that, to me, was one of the strengths of that period. And maybe partly why Enterprise failed was, again, it went to a prequel era. Whereas perhaps if they'd made the series after Voyager, again, in a similar time frame, do you think that might have helped it out if they'd done that? Or
I think it would have worked.
In respect to the new series, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a few reasons why Enterprise maybe didn't succeed. I think one of the reasons the biggest reason possibly was, for me, they promised to show us how the Federation formed, and then they just didn't. And they started messing around with the temporal war and all that sort of thing instead. So they sort of didn't give us what they were supposed to, if that makes sense.
Right.
But I actually really liked it. I actually genuinely still think one of the best Star Trek, full stop Star Trek episodes ever was an Enterprise episode called Regenerations, which was sort of like a follow-on from...
That was a Borg one, wasn't it? That was a Borg...
Follow-on from First Contact.
Yeah.
Great. I wish it had been a double episode. Fantastic episode. I really liked Scott Bakula as the captain. I liked Paul. I liked Trip. I liked all the characters. That's the reason why I don't like Discovery. The characters are boring as crap. That's why I could not name a single character from Discovery except Michael, and I only remember that because the name's a boy's name. I don't get it.
That's my name, so there you go.
There you go. But I don't get it. I also think why Strange New Worlds is so fantastic, because they've got the characters right. The characters are great, but the characters were brilliant in Enterprise. Some of the stories wandered around. The Temporal Cold War crap weirded me out. And
what about Xindi?
They didn't fulfill the promise. That's the problem. They didn't fulfill the promise.
I mean, Enterprise had a very good 3rd season, I thought, with the Xindi whole war arc. I think it was quite entertaining. I don't know whether it should have been a whole season-long thing, but I think for the most part, it actually worked very well. And the 4th season was clever because it had lots of 3 or 4 episode arcs in the 4th season, and of course had a fantastic Mirror Universe episode, which was not only a prequel, but it was also a sequel from the original series, which was so clever.
Correct. Yeah.
With Discovery.
What's the
in the Mirror Darkly
glass things?
Tholians.
The Tholian episode was an amazing episode. Such a good episode. There were rumors that there was supposed to be a lot of Mirror Universe in the 5th season. That was going to be the overarching story in the 5th season. I think Enterprise would have survived if they'd have done the refit at the start of Series 4. So it comes back from the Xindi conflict.
You mean the secondary hull? Yes, I heard about the refit.
In the engine section and everything, yeah. So if they'd have put that in and had a souped-up Enterprise, the refit Enterprise, I think that would have stirred up a bit more interest. Trekkies would have loved it, and I think it could have survived into season 5, but they didn't. The plan was that was supposed to be the start of season 5. They were going to do the refit, and I think they held off too long. But shame.
I mean, that's the problem why the actual season was rushed at the end, season 4, with the Next Generation crew, which a lot of people hated the last episode of that. I actually didn't mind it, but I could see why a lot of people hated it. So
I think it's a good season ender. If you're ending a season with that episode, not a bad episode. but it was the series finale. It was the end of the whole thing. As a series finale, it was terrible. If that had just been the end of season 4, going on to season 5, I think people would have quite liked it. But as a series finale, no. But then we'll get back to Picard a little bit, because there's a couple of things I wanted to.
Cool. Sorry, yes.
So I do have a couple of concerns about Picard season 3, but a lot of these concerns were based more from like 4 or 5 months ago, because season 1. I've said this a million times, but season 1 let us down, season 2 let us down. Fool me once, sort of thing.
Yes.
But fool me 3 times, and I'm the idiot, sort of thing. So, but everything it looks like this is going to be a brilliant series of Star Trek. It looks like it might actually be the Star Trek series season that these characters deserve. So, jobs are good. Everyone that's in it. But the 2 characters I was a bit concerned by, Moriarty and Lore. I mean, they're hornshoeing Brent Spiner into the series again, right? But Lore is supposed to be taken apart on a starbase somewhere, and Moriarty was supposed to be on a memory chip aboard the Enterprise D. Now,
I've got a theory.
Go on, tell us your theory, because I've got one as well. So go on.
Very quickly. In the Next Generation, there was an episode where the holodeck, the computer went wrong, and they said it create a program intelligent enough to defeat Data. And it created Moriarty, and it made him very smart and everything. I'm convinced that there's going to be something where Moriarty is brought back as a program to defeat Lore. I just think there might be some sort of link with the fact that, I don't know, it's just an idea I had. What do you think about that? Is that possible? What do you think is feasible?
Yeah, I don't see why it's not a possible idea. Why not? Obviously, Lore's in it at some point. When I don't understand why Geordie knew it was Lore and didn't think it was B4, because when Geordie sees him through the window, Geordie would think, and unless there's something that we don't know yet, unless they know that Lore is knocking around, Geordie might already know he's escaped or something. We don't know about that point. But when he sees him through the window, he goes, Lore. But he knows B4 is around. He doesn't know that Lore is around, as far as we know. So I didn't get that. I don't get why Lore is all old, but I think that's going to be skin.
Yeah, so strange. Can't tell. It looks like skin, doesn't it?
It's going to be a Borg thing, I think. The Moriarty thing, when you see Moriarty, it does look like he's in a hollow chamber. So it's being projected.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
I'm wondering whether the villain that we don't know, the captain of the strike, we don't know who she is, where she's come from, but she knows Jean-Luc, and Jean-Luc knows her.
Yeah.
And as soon as he sees her, he goes, "We got to get out of here." Right. So he knows her. So we're going to know her. She's got to be a character from the Next Generation, is my theory.
Okay.
In which case, she's brought Moriarty and Lore back, and I don't know. She's messing with Jean-Luc somehow.
Yeah.
Haunting him, sort of thing, like bringing back ghosts from the past. Apparently, Moriarty isn't in it much. He's only pretty much in it for a couple of minutes, and he's not in the rest.
Oh, is he? Oh, I didn't know it's as small as that. Okay, I wasn't aware of that.
So I'm wondering whether he's like the harbinger of the news, sort of thing, and he's there to tell. And it's all thing to like say ghosts haunting Luke, building up towards what then happens, and that's why Lore's there as well. In which case, I've been racking my brain trying to think which villain it could be. And the only thing I can think is it's got to be Borg related. Because that ship, that Shrike, that spiky looking thing, looks a bit Borgy, which isn't a word, but we're going with it.
Okay.
But also, it kicks the Titan's ass. And another ship. It kicks another ship as well. So it's a formidable vessel. So where she got it from?
Well, her skin looks like it's partly damaged. I mean, I don't know whether there's some evidence that she might have some assimilated with the Borg or something like that. Yeah. It's the Borg have been used during the entire series. The first season had a cube. The second season we had the Queen. So they might want to continue. And the Borg are the biggest villain to have appeared in the Next Generation era. But I suppose really, I mean, with regard to Geordie saying law, that could have just been the editing of the actual trailer. I mean, the one thing you have to keep in mind is that often trailers, they are just bits and pieces. They just throw them together for dramatic effects.
Yeah.
But as you say, now, if law is aging, now, apparently Data did have a program to age. It was mentioned in an episode of season 7 of the Next Generation. I think it was the one where we discovered his mother, which was actually another Sung android that we saw. But why Law is wearing the Starfleet uniform, for one thing, and he's got the yellow eyes, but his skin does look like it's the normal human pigments, and his hair is white, which tells me that there's something has happened that we need to know what it is. But in what respect, I don't know.
We've seen images as well that is not in the trailer, but there's been a couple of images knocking around of, again, Brent Spiner in the uniform, stood on the deck on the bridge, of some vessel, which again made me think it's B4. But initially, when I saw those, because again, that would make sense. Data's memory was put into B4 at the end of
Nemesis.
At the end of Nemesis, we start seeing that his memories seem to be coming through. So I thought it made sense if he was B4, but it doesn't look like it's law. So,
well, I mean, from what I understand from the first season, the Data's consciousness was put into B4, but B4 was too primitive to run the software kind of thing. It was like a Windows XP running a Windows 95 program or something.
Yeah.
I still think that Law technically is a much more better built android.
Yes, he's supposed to be slightly more advanced. Yeah.
So whether there's some way that because I assume that the memories of Data would still be in the deactivated B4.
Yep.
So if that's the case, couldn't they simply, if they've got Law and he's been reactivated because he was taken apart as well, could Data's essence be then put into B4? Maybe they have some sort of personality crisis, like a schizophrenia thing, where Law could be fighting with aspects of Data. Could that be a possible?
Yeah, why not? And like I say, it'd be interesting to bring sort of Data somehow back into it. They might just say that Law, because he is more advanced, was programmed to age, and he had the emotion chip and everything.
Yeah.
They might just explain it like that. He goes, "Yeah, I was always programmed to explain," because they do. I mean, the way they explained Q was quite funky. They just sort of, "Oh, I'll catch up."
And, that's it. That's explained. That's it. Sorted.
They do explain it. They didn't explain why from 10 forward, why Whoopi Goldberg.
Guinan. Oh, that was a real mess up, because we saw Guinan in the 19th century, and then of course we've seen Guinan again in the 21st century, but she was then played by a different actress. Yeah. So of course we know the reason why is because of course Guinan was younger when they filmed Time's Arrow, I think it was called. Back in, and of course the new one was only filmed a couple of years ago. But that I find that a bit annoying. I'd rather just not have seen Guinan played by a different actress.
Exactly. I just wish they hadn't bothered.
Yeah, just that was redundant. Yeah.
And then they also did that, trying to do that whole thing, trying to explain where the Elorians were watchers and all this sort of thing. And I just wish they'd left it out. But they had to put it in because they didn't have enough story for season 2.
Well, that's the problem with it.
I've lost you for a second now. We'll see if he comes back. Anyway, guys, get into the comments. Tell us what you think about season 3. Are you looking forward to it, or are you thinking it's just going to be one more disaster from Kurtzman? Or are you actually thinking it's Terry Matalas is running this, but Terry Matalas did actually write and work on the other 2 seasons. He's not coming into this fresh. He has always worked on other projects as well, but he hasn't just come into this completely fresh. So is Terry Matalas the man to take Star Trek and Star forwards, or do we think that actually it might be somebody else? Oh, your mic is back. Thank God.
All right, thank you. I did hear what you say about Terry Matalas. I think from what I've seen of his, I mean, like I said, I can really only answer your question once I've seen season 3, but at the moment it's pointing that he potentially could be the person that we need. to continue Star Trek in whatever form that will be.
Mhm.
Whether that happens or not, but I'd still got some worries, concerns until the season's finished. So ask me in 10 weeks' time, and I'll be able to tell you probably a bit more confidently.
I mean, season 2 started brilliantly. The first episode of season 2 was brilliant.
He wrote episode 1 of season 2.
And I was just like, and then the rest of the season, it just sort of went, I'm going to jump off a cliff. It did a complete lemmings. So I hate it. There's so many things about it. I actually not argued with, but I had a debate with Terry Matalas on Twitter about Picard season 2 and how they neutered the Borg and ruined the best villain in sci-fi. And he sort of said, no, they're not the same as the Borg. This is her, Jurati's collective.
Separate collective. It's not part of the main hive, is it, or something?
But the point I made then was like, okay, so she has created her own hive. So she's enslaved tens of thousands of beings.
Yeah.
I'm not sure Jurati's the good guy. And I also pointed out that all Jurati actually had to do was lift up her visor and go, it's me. Hi.
But that wouldn't have made very good. That would have obviously defeated the whole point of the actual mystery. As you say, that was a plot hole. But they did that for the actual dramatic effect, where, as you say, just like, oh, it's me. Oh, okay, it's fine. We'll then put the shields up.
I don't mind plot holes. I don't mind leaps of logic. I do mind when something's just stupid. And that was just stupid. The whole season was a complete waste of time, really, if you think about it. But I do live with the realm that sometimes things happen because the story has to happen. So it's like, well, why did that happen? Why have they just talked about that there when they could have just not? Because the story needs to happen. Because we're watching. So these things need, so you have to have plot devices and blah, blah, blah. I'm just a little bit disappointed when it's just thick. And, but anyway. What do you think about the possibility? Well, Patrick Stewart's already said this might not be the end of Picard. Even though he is 903 years old. He's doing very well for his age.
Yes.
But he is not, and he is an old man. But Gates McFadden, Marina Sirtis, and Jonathan Frakes have all talked about maybe there being a possibility of future adventures of the TNG crew. For me, Michael Dorn and bringing Worf back is the easiest. I mean, they've been talking about doing a Worf series.
He's wanted to do his own series for many, many years. He's pitched it to Paramount and all sorts of things. It's never happened.
Begged. Begged. But
basically.
What do you think about that? Is that something you'd want to see?
I think that I'm reminded a bit of Stargate season 8, where O'Neill was more kind of like just the commander. He was less in the forefront. His role went more in the background. What might work is some sort of transitional thing where we have some of the Next Generation crew in a command perspective or something with a new crew, which I think they may be doing in Picard season 3 anyway, and slowly transition to a new crew that we know, and the Next Generation characters slowly become more in the background. I think that's something which might happen. I don't know whether this is supposed to be the last ever season or story of the Next Generation crew.
Yeah, that's what it's been hyped up as,
So, and like I'm also thinking of Generations, where we did see 3 of the original series crew for the transitional thing of the Next Generation's first movie. So I would think that would be the way it would go, rather than saying, well, look, we just did season 3 of Picard. It was a huge success. Do you know what? We're all going to come back and do another season and call it Star Trek Picard 2 or something, or B2. I don't know. So, I mean, what do you think about it?
I do think if this series is popular and a few of the actors want to come back, I could see them appearing in whatever the next project is.
Right.
I suspect they've got a plan with this. I suspect Terry Matalas knows what the next is. And I actually think as soon as the last, or just before the last episode of season 3 of Picard, we'll know what this next series is going to be, because they'll announce it.
Yeah.
I suspect.
Okay.
I don't know whether it'll be a Worf series or it'll just be a different, or it'll be a 7 of. I mean, for me, I want the 7 of 9 on the Titan. That's what I want. And maybe a few of the characters from TNG will will be her crew or something. I don't know. Or they'll just appear like they did in Picard season 2. Like, Marina Sutter, Deanna Troi just turned up, Jonathan Frakes turned up, but they weren't big parts. They were
sort of
woven into the story a little bit, and we just got a flash of them. Maybe we do that. Well, Gates McFadden has been on Twitter, and she has said, look, guys, if you want us to come back in some sort of project, it's up to you. So she was sort of hinting, if you call for it, they might do it. So it would suggest it's been at least discussed.
I've heard, now I don't know if you watched The Mandalorian, but the end of season 2 of The Mandalorian, the episode ended and it had a post-credit scene where Boba Fett is back with a brand new series. It was a surprise. Nobody knew about it. And it was a huge thing. I've heard that there's going to be a post-credit scene at the end of episode 10, which will have some big surprise.
I think so. That would 100% make sense to me. And look, it seems to me that they've took a leaf out of Marvel's book. I think they tried to do it a little bit in season 2, but it failed. But they are really making sure we don't. Look, at the end of the day, the captain of this Shrike vessel, I do know her name, but I've forgotten it.
I keep forgetting as well.
We don't know who the hell she is.
No.
And that's been very much on purpose. There's another character, that fella, and we no idea who he is. It's just like they've been very careful to make sure that his name, if you go on IMDb, it's just unknown.
Okay.
So they've not released it. So they're being very careful to make sure we don't know a great deal. If you actually think about the trailers,
very vague.
Very vague. We know there's a villain. We know there's a battle, which I'm really looking forward to. I love a good space battle.
Me too. I love space battles. Yeah.
I'm a whore for a good space battle.
So am I, yeah.
So we know that. But actually, what else can you take from that trailer? There's very little. We know Worf headbutts...
Jurati.
No, it's not. It's
Raffi.
We know Worf headbutts Raffi. And Raffi's got a problem. And we basically know there's this threat. And that's it.
That's it.
We don't know anything else. That's very much on purpose, I think.
I've heard that most of the trailer is only consist of stuff from the first 2 episodes as well. So I think a lot of the stuff that we're not going to see yet. So it's very minimal. They're very, very secretive. There's been a lot of fan service, apparently. There's going to be a lot of ties in with, and potentially some crossovers with other Star Trek 24th century era shows like Voyager and DS9. But I love crossovers. That's what I loved about Atlantis. SG1 and Atlantis, they had a lot of crossovers at one point. So if there are crossovers, I'd love to see that. But
I have heard rumors that they thought it was going to be, or part of the thing's going to be filmed on DS9. That part of it, that people said in the background they thought it looked like the promenade and things. But I think that might be people getting a bit.
I have heard of one scene. I don't know if I should spoil it, but I know that there's one scene in a very familiar location. But I'm not going to say it because it's quite big. But I don't know what that will entail. But but I don't know. I mean, I'm hearing lots of different things. If
it's in the trailer, just tell us.
But it's not in the trailer.
Oh, okay. Well, don't tell us. Secrets.
Let's just say that where they're filming it does have carpets. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, then. Is it my house? I've got carpets.
It's a familiar place that you saw in The Next Generation. It's something that you see a lot of in The Next Generation.
That's the Enterprise D then. Okay. Picard does say there are multiple Enterprises.
Yeah.
In this series,
there's going to be something to do with that. That's all I've heard. All I've heard.
So I mean, the D's destroyed, but it could be on a hologram.
But also it could be that the actual source has recovered from Viridian 3.
They could have recovered the source. Could be a museum now.
Because that thing that looks like Starbase from Star Trek 3. Apparently, that is a museum.
Yep. Could be a museum. F could be. Hopefully we'll see the F. We might even see a launch of the G. You never know. But
I'd love to see that. I want a bit of F though, personally.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I love a bit of F. I'd love to see the G though, because on Canon we don't know what the G is. So they've created the F as the Odyssey, which I think is very cool. They brought the game design in. Very cool. They don't have to do that for the G, but there is a game version of the G. There is a G,
and it's got 2 deflector dishes. It's really chunky. If it's the one I'm thinking of, I can't remember the class of it.
No,
It looks really
I haven't
nice.
seen it for a while. I vaguely remember it's quite cool, but they don't have to do that. They can do whatever they want because it's canon. So on screen they can do something. So they could actually create a starship that we've not seen before. And you know what we're like? We'll go effing crazy. So they give us a G. So yeah, I'd love to see that. But I don't.
They've also created their own. I mean, they did the Stargazer last season. They've got the Titan A this season, so they've got the creativity to make a good-looking, brand new starship. If they made the Enterprise G themselves, which would be then canon, that'd be huge for the Star Trek fan base.
Yeah, and I actually adored the Stargazer. I'm in two minds about the Titan. Some angles of the Titan, I love it. And when it was actually, there's the scene in the trailer when he's sort of like it's scooting across the top of the base.
Yes,
and there's all the panels and things. I was thinking, oh, that looks good. That does. But then you'd see another angle, like the back end of the saucer section. You're just like,
all the impulse engines. Yeah, too many impulse engines. Yeah.
Been drawn by a child. But what it looks like in parts is that they've got a bit of the Constitution, and I'm going to take a bit of an Excelsior class, and I'm going to take a little bit of this, and then I'm going to stick it all together. And oh, look, got a new ship. And I'm just like, now design a new ship. Don't do it so that it reminds us of lots of other ships. Just do a ship.
So do you wish they hadn't made a sort of retro kind of like it's called a Constitution 3 or a Neo Constitution? Do you think they should have had just more of a modern kind of 25th century aesthetic ship design that we've seen, like the Stargazer? Or
well, it does look like a throwback, doesn't it? It doesn't look like a vessel that would follow a sovereign class. It looks like a vessel that would have been built before it. Before the galaxy, even. That's what it looks like. So it does look like a bit of a throwback. But
it looks like a sort of movie era, 23rd century era, sort of like apart from the sails look a bit more modern, but apart from that.
But I am 100% confident that we'll fall in love with it. I didn't like the Voyager when it first came out, and I adored it by the end.
Oh, but Voyager's gorgeous design.
Yeah, it's a lovely ship, but I didn't like it at first because the whole thing with the warp nacelles that irritated me.
Yeah.
Why do that? That's unnecessary.
There was an explanation about that. Apparently, it was to stop pollution by warp travel.
It was the warp vectoring. It created a warp vectoring to stop the space-time deterioration it was causing, wasn't it?
Damage to yeah. So
it was causing ruptures in space and things, wasn't it? But yeah. So I don't know why doing that though does that. It's like, if we just angle the warp engines at 45 degrees, it solves the problem.
That's it. If I saw it, that's it.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, it was a bit of a. It was just to make it look cool that it goes like that. But it was a bit of a cheesy thing to do.
Hey, it's better than what J.J. Abrams did with the Enterprise. So let's just with all the flappy bits it had and bloody. I'm so glad they're not doing the J.J. Abrams isn't getting a Star Trek 4. I'm so pleased.
They keep saying that it's still on the cards. I'm hearing different things all the time.
It's pretty much dead at the moment. Basically, I've just been talking about this because it's related to Stargate. J.J. Abrams has got and Bad Robot has got an exclusivity deal with Paramount with Warner Brothers, and it's a 4-year deal. They paid $250 million, but they've actually over the 4 years produced nothing. It's not completely their fault. The deal was signed late 2019, and then stuff happened. Frozen again. But anyway, so it's not completely their fault. They haven't produced anything. Warner Brothers apparently about 6 months ago was seriously contemplating suing Bad Robot because of this not doing anything. They kept pitching ideas, and Warner Brothers just kept saying no. So then they announced Star Trek 4 because they were trying to get out of this exclusivity deal.
Right.
But now it looks like David Zaslav, the new guy and head of Warner Brothers, they've built a few bridges, and now a couple of projects have been thrown Bad Robot's way. They're going to be doing Constantine 2. They're going to be doing another project. So it looks like the relationship has sort of been mended a little bit.
Okay, that's interesting.
Bad Robot were going out and trying to find other deals, trying to find other projects. J.J. and Bad Robot would not have been allowed to do Star Trek 4.
Oh, really? Okay, that's interesting.
The only thing they could have done, J.J. Abrams could have gone on separate from Bad Robot as a producer, but even that was slightly dodgy. But that is why when he announced Star Trek 4, none of the crew knew, none of the staff,
They were all surprised. They were all surprised, yeah.
Yeah, because it was a bit of a Hail Mary, apparently, and it backfired.
Yeah. It's a shame. I mean, what did you think of the Kelvin series of films in general? Were you very anti them? Were you indifferent to them? Did you just see them as popcorn flicks or what?
They're fun movies. They're popcorn movies. They're good sci-fi action. They're not Star Trek.
Yeah,
I think it's fair, and that goes for me is like just look at the 3 different enterprises they threw out. They're just terrible. But yeah, fun films, not Star Trek.
I think I agree entirely. It's but what is it that makes Star Trek Star Trek? I mean, you and I kind of know what it is, but how do you explain that to a non sort of expert? It's hard to.
The way I was I tried to explain this to somebody else. I think science fiction. Basically, Star Trek is science fiction, heavy on the science. Right?
Yeah,
science fiction. Everything's supposed to be grounded in some sort of theory, and then they create a fiction. The J.J. Abrams movies were science fiction, heavy on the fiction.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Things like using a black hole to go travel through is just not. It causes time dilation, right? Yes, it does. So we can fly through it, right? No, you can't. If you fly near one, time slows down. That's the science. Don't fly through a fucking hole.
No.
And they made the Enterprise water powered.
Oh, brewery, wasn't it? It was like a brewery. It was really strange. It
awful. Yeah. But so they that's what the thing. And like they changed the warp core 3 times. But these are the things that Trekkies like. We like the details. We like the ships. We like we like that
continuity. We like continuity. This is another thing I've had a problem with Discovery, is that a lot of the actual regular races don't look like the regular races that we know. I mean, I saw Ferengi last season. I don't think you've seen the most recent season of Discovery.
They're spiky. We are going to see them in something soon, but they're spiky.
Make them look like they did for all those years when Michael Westmore did all the makeup, and he was fantastic. And surely they could have someone who could take over what he did and continue that. That continuity is a big thing for Star Trek. It needs to all slot together, and that's one thing which has had a difficulty in the new era of Star Trek, unfortunately.
Well, this is why prequels and stuff annoy me, because it ends up just trampling on canon. But hey, look, we let a lot slide with Star Trek.
Oh yeah, you've got to be a bit open-minded. Yeah,
they've always fucked canon up from day one. They fucked canon up. But I do think there's so much Star Trek, it's hard not to. It's like you would have to have some sort of genius that can remember every single episode and every single line to be consulting all the time to not mess canon up sometimes.
But it's more messed up these days than it was in the Rick Berman era. I think to a large degree it held together relatively okay, but since it finished in 2005 with all the new stuff, there's been a lot less connection with continuity, I think.
The way it was described to me, because there's a few people in the industry I speak to, and one of the guys is a big creative director, and I nearly said his name then. But anyway, maybe he's a he, maybe he's a she. I don't know. But or they, yeah. So this fellow's explained to me. He says it's basically Star Trek's a hybrid reboot. So you've normally got like continuations or like a soft reboot. Star Trek Next Generation is a soft reboot. It's the story exists, the universe exists, but you've got totally new characters. But everything that happened before still happens. Continuation. Yes. Yep. Or you've got the hard reboot, where it's basically Battlestar Galactica.
Yes.
New story. Whatever happened before didn't happen. New story, new characters. Here we go. Star Trek under Kurtzman has been a hybrid. It's been a bit of both. So they were basically told very early on, you can pick and choose. So certain things are canon and certain things just aren't, and they've been allowed to get away with it. And he was actually talking to me about this about Stargate, because he says that was his fear with Stargate, that they could decide to go that route. and do this sort of like hybridized canon thing, because the main reason is it's easier for the writers. If the writers aren't fenced in
from
canon,
the continuity of the canon, yeah,
they're allowed to they're allowed to color outside the lines a little bit, at least. They are allowed to. It means they can go in different directions with the story that otherwise they couldn't. So, but we'll see what they end up doing with thing. I don't think if Mark Ferguson ends up against Stargate, I don't think he'd do that. But if Bad Robot had got the Stargate movie, which they were pushing for, 100% they'd have done that.
Yeah,
they'd have made the argument, we need to be creative, we can't be fenced in by canon. You know, that's
one thing I sort of think about is what you've already said, is that basically, you know, Star Trek, a lot of people that watch it aren't fans, and I think that's partly why when it came back with the Kelvin universe, they had this brand and they knew that the fans were there, but in the end, the percentage of fans compared to like the cinematic audience would be relatively minor. Now in this new era with Picard season 3 and Strange New Worlds, I think they're kind of realizing that it's just as important to have the fans as happy, because they would also spread positive word of mouth to potentially less fan-based audience and make it bigger. So I think they might have learned a bit compared to when the 2008, 2009, when the first Star Trek movie came out, to where we are now, where they are creating Strange New Worlds. They are trying to make a Next Generation complete last season. So it's interesting. As for Stargate, I mean, I don't know. I mean, Stargate, that is a very fan-based series. We love everything about it. We want it all to work. But again, you know, it's if someone comes in and think, well, look, you know, as you say, a hybrid is an idea where they can use aspects of this SG-1 series, but go in its own way. I really hope that they don't do that. But in the end, you don't know what's going to happen.
The one thing with Stargate was they always did stick to canon. I couldn't think of any canon. I actually put the challenge out there to my subscribers and said, look, what were the canon problems? And somebody said they didn't open a Zat gun once and they fired it. So it fired without it popping open. And I'm like, guys, if that's the best we can do, right?
I'll tell you one thing. They stopped. Well, they didn't stop. It's not continuity because it does. But they used to have the Zat gun where it was 1 for stun, 2 for kill, and 3 for vaporize. And the vaporize stopped after the first or second season. But that's not a continuity thing. That's just they didn't bother using it.
We never saw it again.
Yeah, so you can't really use that.
Could dissipate. So if I shot you, but then didn't shoot you again for like an hour, it didn't.
Then it would be back to stun again, wouldn't it?
The energy dissipates, and they explain that at one point. But yeah,
no, it was very solid. Stargate, it really was. It really did all hold together, and I think that's what made it so special.
I think having somebody like Brad Wright that went through the whole thing helped to keep it all. But also the series, I suppose, were very separate. You know, Atlantis was very separate as you want, and obviously Universe was completely separate again. So it allowed them to they didn't step on each other's toes with it, where Star Trek does all the time. Like I say, we don't need a Starship Enterprise. This is one of the things I said with Strange New Worlds. We don't need Strange New Worlds. If Strange New Worlds was the same actors, but instead of Captain Pike, it was Captain Poke, and he was aboard
Starship Farragut or something.
Aboard the Endeavour, the Farragut, there's something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
They wouldn't have any issues with like stepping on canon. They wouldn't have any of us going, right, where's Kirk? Where's thinking, what, this doesn't make sense. And they could have just done a fun show, and we'd have been just as happy. But they're obsessed with the original series.
Yeah, that's a really good idea. They could have easily have done that, where it was actually just set like 10 years before the original series on a sister ship like the Intrepid or something, had its own crew, and they could have still called it Strange New Worlds, and it could have really had the same look of it, but it's a different ship, which is why it was helped to stop the continuity issues with the original Jeffrey Hunter Enterprise with the Anson Mount. But yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I could see that.
I wish I just done that. But they had to have the Enterprise and Discovery, didn't they?
And Spock and everything, yeah.
But again, like I say, they're obsessed with the Enterprise. They're obsessed with Kirk and Spock and all these characters. And I'm like, Star Trek's bigger than that. We don't need to keep revisiting these same bloody characters over and over again. Enterprise, the original Enterprise, they got around saying, oh, well, this isn't the real Enterprise because it's the NX Enterprise. Because we're all going, wait, no, there wasn't another Enterprise. That is the first Enterprise. And then the Enterprise A, B, C. We know this already. So what?
Yeah.
And they said, the NX. Why didn't they just call that the Farragut or Endeavour or something else? But they're obsessed with it. They had to call it the Enterprise, and they think that we won't watch it. If that had
make it
Star Trek Endeavour,
Star Trek Columbia, because the NX-02 was shown in Enterprise. They could have made that the NX-01. It could have been called Star Trek Columbia.
Columbia, or I mean, I would love like Challenger or something like that. Star Trek Challenger.
Yeah, that's a good name.
But they're obsessed with the Enterprise, and I'm just like, they just need to get past it. We don't care. You know what I mean? No. We don't get me wrong. We love to see the Enterprise. We do. I want to see the G. I do. But we don't. I don't need a new series based on it.
No, you know, I see where you're coming from. I can see where you're coming from. I mean, it could appear, but it doesn't necessarily have to be the main focus of a brand new Star Trek series, I think.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Right, we said we'd keep to an hour. We're a couple of minutes off. We can talk all bloody night on Star Trek. I know.
I'm sorry. I go into it. I love it, but it's really good to talk to someone who's got the like-minded information and knowledge about this incredible franchise. And yeah, okay, well, okay, geek. I'm certainly a geek. If you're a geek, I'm a geek.
I'm a massive nerd, and my wife knows it as well. I'm a nerd who's got a girlfriend. Says that's wife.
Well, listen, thank you very much for inviting me on.
No, I was just going to, before you disappeared, we've got 2 more minutes. Just very generally, just to finish off, do you think that Star Trek Picard Season 3 is going to be a success?
Yes. Very much.
So do I. I trust the people that have seen.
I'm most confident about this I've seen since Star Trek's definitely returned on TV in 2017. I'm really confident about this, and I know I should have a bit of trepidation. I've just got too much good word of mouth from what I'm hearing.
Yep. If it's crap, I hand on my heart.
What are you going to do to yourself?
Oh no, not just. I will never watch any of these live-action TV series again. I'm going to continue watching the cartoons because the cartoons are great. So, Prodigy is the best Star Trek we've had.
I've not watched it much yet. I've seen the first few episodes. I do find it a bit of a stumbling block with animated stuff. It's like the Star Wars, like the Clone Wars. I have watched them. I like them. I'm more of a live action show, but I have heard a lot of positive vibes from
Prodigy. Just got better and better, honestly. And the last 2 episodes were just brilliant. And it's a proper big space battle.
I know there's lots of starships in those. Yes, I saw that. Yes, I've seen that. We
saw the Enterprise get destroyed. We see not destroyed, but we see the Enterprise.
Oh, spoilers!
I know. Well, you should have been keeping up. You should know this. You should have watched my video.
I know. I've
I told you that. So.
I'll watch it as soon as this is done. How's that sound?
Thank you. If you could all just watch it about 10 times each. Watch the adverts.
And like and do this stuff. Yeah, exactly.
So that's all great. No, guys, thank you so much, Mike. Everybody, Star Trek Picard Season 3 airs Thursday or Friday, depending on where you are in the world. Get on the channel. I will do a video as soon as I get to watch the first episode, just quickly. But guys, get onto the Facebook group, get on everyone else. As soon as you see it, drop us your opinions without too many spoilers at first. Give everyone a chance to watch it, but throw your opinions on my Twitter feed and whatever as soon as you get to watch it. I'd love to know what you think of this new series. Thanks everybody in the comments. You've been amazing again. Shelley is the love of my life. She's a Canadian lady and she does my Facebook group. And I went from having like 300 people in my Facebook group to 1,600 people in my Facebook group because she does all the work. And she doesn't follow Star Trek. She's had no freaking clue what we've been talking about for an hour. And she's still sat there and watching.
Oh, well done, Shelley. Well done.
Thank you, Shelley. Guys, thank you so much. We're spot on the hour, like we said we would be. I will just throw up the ending credit sequence and I'll just say goodbye. Thanks, Mike.
Thanks a lot.
We'll see you in a few weeks. Have a good one.
And you.